The first afreHEALTH Symposium focuses on leadership and capacity building for research among health professions. To give us a keynote address is Dr. Roger Glass. And if you may, please refer to page 9 for the extreme short version of Roger's profile. Dr. Glass was named Director of Fugadi International Center and Associate Director for International Research by the NIH Director Elias Zohani on March 31st, 2006. Dr. Glass graduated from the Harvard Medical School and subsequently obtained his Master of Public Health from the Harvard School of Public Health in 1972. Dr. Glass has co-authored over 600 research papers and chapters. Ladies and gentlemen, to talk to us about improving health research capacity in Africa, we have no meaner person than yours truly, Dr. Roger Glass. Let's welcome.
Thank you, Ellis, for that lovely, short, and abbreviated introduction, and welcome. I'm honored and delighted to be here speaking as the keynote speaker for the first afreHEALTH Symposium, and to see so many friends in the audience. How many of you have not been to a MEPI meeting or an afreHEALTH meeting before? Raise your hands. Well, that's fabulous, because that represents the growth and the scaling of this activity in the world today. Now, well, this is last year, August 2nd, at the last MEPI meeting, where the signatures were signed to start afreHEALTH. So this is really a wonderful event and demonstrates African researchers engaging in defining your future. I thought that the rector said, the head of the college said, Africa must plan your own future, and this is exactly what you were doing. The visionaries for MEPI in the United States were Eric Gooseby, head of PEPFAR at that time, Francis Collins, who committed NIH to linked awards, and the result has been nothing less than spectacular, with the ideas that Africans would get direct grants and control these grants as we go forward. So this was wonderful in the MEPI leadership last year, as this was right there alongside midwifing MEPI into afreHEALTH, taking the initiative on your own without U.S. direct funding, but with a tremendous commitment to support. Well, here are your members, and one of the key features of the new afreHEALTH was that, unlike the MEPI program for medical, this was allied health professionals, nurses, pharmacists, and the like, and I think that's something that's key for interprofessional education as we go forward. The idea and the goals were developing human capacity around Africa. Dr. Collins was quite committed to Africa because he put his own money into H3 Africa, Human Heredity for Africa, another major NIH grant in the region. Well, the legacy of MEPI was manyfold. While we gave 13 grants for MEPI, we showed up at the first meeting with 34 deans. That would never happen in the United States, but in MEPI, you grantees brought other universities and medical schools from around the country to upgrade it. So this was something that we never anticipated, the creativity of Africans addressing your own issues. You really developed a model that could be scaled not only to these 34 schools, but to schools around the continent. This is big and this is scalable, and it's very exciting, and it's something we never would have anticipated. We had our meeting in Kumasi 2013, and at that time, we challenged the leadership to move from being passive grantees to taking charge. And so this was an amazing and transformative result, and Peter, you were there and organized it. I was particularly delighted because the vice chancellor at that time, Dr. Ellis, was a Fogarty grantee at the University of Alabama, and I'll tell you a story about him at the end. Well, MEPI was a great experiment and a worthy goal. You had local ownership with direct grants to Africans. This is something that we do rarely, but the entire program was directed to you. You had research training for students as they were students, so research was part of the curriculum. You had new models for South-South partnership because the MEPI PIs went to visit each other's universities and met twice a year. You have created a bonding association. You've introduced access to the internet, who said, if MEPI's promoting medical education in our country, that's something that my Ministry of Education in Zimbabwe should do, and contributed money. And in Tanzania, the Minister of Telecommunications and Information said if the university in Arusha is going to do massive training in internet, we want to give them free internet access for 10 years, supporting the development. So it's not only the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Telecommunications, and Ministry of Finance. All could be involved in this effort in interaction with governments. When we had the meeting in 2012 with Dr. Tedros in Ethiopia, over dinner with Joe Kolars, he was bemoaning the fact that he had to buy textbooks in India for his 3,000 medical students. And over dinner we said, why don't you buy tablet PCs so that all the students will have tablet PCs? They won't have to get their textbooks. And lo and behold, he went out and provided, the next year, Milia Durbu, who's here, brought the tablet PC that was purchased for 2,000 students. Now all medical students in Ethiopia will be getting tablet PCs. This is something that could happen around the continent, not only for physicians, but for nurses, and moving on to higher education and beyond. And Dr. Tedros is a true leader, so he's someone we can call upon who knows about MEPI and knows what we're doing. Well, just at that meeting at Kumasi, the key features of MEPI came out, which should be a part of afreHEALTH as we go forward. The idea of research support is critical because without platforms of research support, research grantees cannot come into the country. The linked awards were critical, and here in Ghana, the use of emergency medicine and trauma has expanded as a discipline, as a specialty, and is moving across Africa. The idea of research training for students has become an integral part of medical education because medicine and health is a knowledge industry. And what we're doing today is totally different from what happened 30 years ago when we were training. And e-learning and broadband hotspots across medical schools and nursing schools is key, is a major change in what's happening in health education. I mentioned Grant's office because all of the MEPI schools introduced an office of sponsored research with ethics and IRB review panels, research managers, financial accountability, grant writing, and look what's happened from NIH. In that period of MEPI, over 150 grants from NIH came to African MEPI schools, a number of grants far in excess of just the MEPI linked awards. This is huge. This is bringing research to Africa, and this is absolutely essential to build the research workforce. So in Ghana, because you have that Office of Sponsored Research, you can see up there in Ghana, 46 grants from NIH are coming to Ghana. We're really supporting the research endeavor here and would love to see a parallel support from the government of Ghana, and I'll mention that later. So how do we engage in government leaders to invest in long-term goals? Most governments are only in power for a couple years. They can't think in the long term. How do we do that? How can you get them to think beyond today? Well, we have to think economics. And Giorgio, I thought your presentation on the workforce was absolutely excellent because it's in the economic arguments that we might have the greatest impact. Well, here are some of the leaders who have been trained through NIH-sponsored programs. And if we invest in people at an early age and they stay with research, they're going to be leaders in research for the long term. But think about it. We think of these people as research leaders, as scientists, but think of them a different way. Think of them, as Giorgio might say, as economic centers, as entrepreneurs, scientific entrepreneurs. And just take James Hakim here, who's in the audience and on the MEPI Council. James has been doing NIH-sponsored research now for more than 20 years. He's literally brought millions of dollars in research into Zimbabwe. He's trained a generation of researchers who are out there getting their own grants. He's been successful with MEPI to get some of his junior faculty with research grants, and he's sponsored and supported the PEPFAR programs in the country. This individual, trained and working through this grants process, has literally been a major entrepreneur, bringing foreign money into the country to support employment, the health workforce, research dollars, economic growth, and saving the lives of literally tens of thousands of people in the country. This is something we have to think about as economics. And I pick out James because he's in the audience, but there are many other people up here that would have the same sort of story, and I am short on time. Let's see. So I just want to show you a little bit. If you're an investor, should you invest in research in Uganda? If you just take a look at this description of NIH research in Uganda, in up to 2000, no research grants to Uganda at that time. Amazing. First grants came in through the ATRIP program from NIAID to work on AIDS, from Fogarty to train people like Nelson Suinkambo and Peter Muganye, who introduced the first antiretroviral programs. By 2015, over 100 grants in the country. This is a major investment in research. This is a major contribution to the country and to the world. It's built the labor force for research. It's built the labor force for the delivery of services. This is absolutely huge and has involved the training of many people. It's furthermore, the number of publications has skyrocketed over time, so that Uganda has become a major force for research, training, and South-South collaboration. If you want to train people from Francophone country in an English-speaking country, Uganda or Ghana are places to go. This is a future for growth. When we went to Uganda last year with Dr. Collins, we met Dr. Eliota right here. Dr. Eliota's brother died of HIV. He became an HIV doctor and trained at Western Reserve on a Fogarty program, went back to Uganda to become the Minister of Health, and now is the Minister of Science, Technology, and Innovation. When we were there, he said, I'd like to support research in the country. So we suggested that we set up an agreement, and I would ask you, Minister, a similar agreement here in Ghana. And the agreement was this: while we can give grants, we short grants in countries in Africa for overhead expenses. We can't give the same overhead to an African institution that we give to Johns Hopkins or a U.S. institution. So perhaps you could supplement a grantee from NIH with additional support for overhead. Similarly, someone who's an internationally competitive researcher like Peter Donkor here could take postdoctoral students and train them also to be internationally competitive. So add on postdoctorate candidates to be trained through national funds, a way to amplify the impact of grants. And so here you see Dr. Collins and Peter and Mary signing an agreement where the government of Uganda provides support for NIH-funded local researchers for postdocs and overheads, and it really rewards the internationally competitive investigators in country. So it's a really nice way to enhance productivity of research in country, recognizing the leverage that you have. Also, while he was there, he visited with a patient from Uganda who got a transplant for sickle cell disease on a research collaboration. And so now we've set up to have Ugandan physicians learn how to do these procedures so they can take them back to their own country. Well, why should an African government invest in its own money in research and research training today? We think it really builds leadership in the health sciences that will endure for 30 years, the duration of their career. We think it will ultimately improve the quality of the workforce to have researchers training, keeping abreast. We think it attracts outside funding for research and collaborations so that it really is a gift that keeps on giving. We believe it retains people in country, and I think the head of the Ghana College has noted that himself. We believe it attracts commercial partners, and I'll tell you a story about the president of Mauritius and what she's done to attract commercial partners. It extends life and improves health, and that's what we're all here about. And it has a great return on investment in the long term. And Giorgio, we're trying to get economists to look at that return from the case studies we have. And it's that long-term issue. Is this an opening then for long-term investments by the World Bank or the African Development Bank? They certainly invest in other infrastructures such as roads where the returns are not going to be seen in this administration. How about investment in people? And people who are researchers who will be leaders in the future. Well, several years ago, 2014, we had President Obama invited African presidents to a summit in Washington. And we took advantage of that visit to bring 5 African presidents to NIH. What African president would want to visit the National Institutes of Health? You know, we have no monuments, we have no great things to see, we just do research. But these were all presidents who valued research and felt that this visit was important to them. And when the president of Tanzania, Kikwete, went home, he decided, and I see Afata Kaya there, he decided that there should be a hospital for clinical investigation in the new medical school in Tanzania. That was the impact of that visit. So we began to think maybe we should be thinking about presidents as we move forward, getting to them to recognize the value of research. So with Dr. Collins, thinking that his term was over as NIH director with the change of administration, he recruited support from the Wellcome Trust, from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and from IESA, Tom Kariuki, and to see if we couldn't figure out a way to sustain research investments as we go forward. The effort to build MEPI, afreHEALTH, is not going to be done overnight. It's not a 5-year endeavor. It's really an endeavor that will be continuous and take decades. So how do we build that sustainability? What can we do? And so the aim, he set up to put together a coalition for African research and innovation that was launched at Davos, the World Economic Forum, this past January a year ago. The alliance, this year, I'm sorry, it's an alliance of African science leaders and international funders to advance the generation of scientists to lead Africa's transformation. The priority is for research capacity building needs to meet health-related SDG targets. Here are the 4 players who were assembled to put their resources and thinking caps on and to energize this movement. But the most important player in this group was President of Mauritius, Amina Gharib Fakim. Why would a president, an African president, be so interested in research? How did she get so interested in research? Well, she is herself a biochemist, a well-known biochemist. She's developed a science park, a research park in Mauritius. She's developed public-private partnership agreements so that not only can they have industry in science, a biotech industry in her country, but she has a playing ground to train young researchers for futures in biomedical research on natural products, ecology, and jobs in R&D. She sees biotech as a growth industry for the future, and it's something that we think Africa needs to consider. Well, we've seen a tracking picture of African research from 2000, when it was considered a hopeless continent, to today, when it's one of the growth centers of the world. And we see in the research that's been conducted in Africa, research that cannot be conducted really anywhere else as well. research on HIV has been absolutely critical, not only to the US and Africa, but the world. You can see these advances in circumcision, in treatment, reduction in PMTCT, maternal to child transmission, vaginal microbicides. Africa is an essential partner in health research. You have a lot to contribute. But it's not only in HIV, it's in many other areas that we think about. And these are just a few. So you have a huge population, lots of disease burden, but a paucity of researchers and a paucity of patents. How can we change this? Well, starting from a low baseline, there's a lot that can be done. We think that there are compelling grounds to move forward. We see African presidents who have pledged 1% of the GDP to science and technology, but it's yet to be fully realized. So there's ample scope for improvement. We see a growth of African presidents who engage and understand research, just like here in Ghana, and a commitment. We see a large working age population where health professionals will be needed. So the time is right to have a real shift in the center of gravity for leadership in science and biomedical science and health to Africa. As you said at the Ghanaian College, Africans should take responsibility and leadership for your own improvements. So the next step for CARI over the next year and a half is to build this coalition, to build a business plan and find a CEO, a strategic work plan, to build partnerships with governments to engage not only the ministries of health, but ministries of science and technology, informatics, business and finance and beyond, to work with industry, public-private partnerships that need to go forward, and philanthropy and international agencies. And I mentioned the World Bank and the African Development Bank. Communications, because you need to get communications out there. And exercises, discussions with others on how to do it best. afreHEALTH needs to pursue the same agenda, the same path, and we spoke about that at our leadership meeting yesterday. The same activities, I think, would help you today. I want to just direct you to this website. It's called worldreport.nih.gov. This is a website that's been put together by the HEROES Group, the heads of international research organizations, which has taken research done since 2012 to 2015 by 9 different international research agencies looking at research in Africa. So it's a land map of where these agencies are investing, in whom they're investing, down to, it's worldreport.nih.gov. I'll say that again so you get it, worldreport.nih.gov. You can go to any theme. If you're interested in sickle cell disease or mental health or malaria, it's right there. It'll take you down to researchers in the country with their awards in great depth. And while you can't see it, it's my encouragement to let you see the research organizations. Here's Noguchi, a direct grant on kidney disease, would you believe, with a collaboration that's all outlined, down to the abstracts. So in ending, I want to just note a few of what I would call science entrepreneurs in terms of research, bringing people to Ghana, employing people, and improving the health of Ghanaians around the country. So, Fred, I just want to recognize you here. I didn't see you here until I came over. My own work has been on rotavirus, and George Armagh at Noguchi not only did early work on rotavirus, but actually did many of the clinical trials of rotavirus in country, and has brought rotavirus vaccination to your immunization program. What a contribution to decrease in Ghana deaths from rotavirus disease through research on the use of vaccine. Another scientific entrepreneur, if you will, helping Ghana and the world. And finally, Peter Donkor, who we've already celebrated, for his work, his research as an NIH grantee and beyond. And I would add the head of the college, who's also an NIH researcher, working on hypertension with a U.S. investigator, an NIH grantee, making a major contribution, bringing research into the country, training the next generation of researchers, and already in a leadership position. So we really congratulate you as well. Amazing, amazing work. And his partner, his U.S. collaborator, is on the board of Fogarty as a board member, along with Joe Kolars, who's in the audience. So, Joe, thank you for being here, and I want you to report back to our board meeting in September on this meeting. Thank you for both of you. So, there are many more who I could go through. There are 49 grantees of NIH who I could go through individually, but I don't have time. afreHEALTH can help build the future of training and research to improve health and advance economic development. Advance economic development in Africa. So we have a lot to do, and this is your moment, and we are all with you. I want to thank my partners also at PEPFAR, at HRSA, who are co-funders of MEPI, and who will be with you as you go forward. But this is your game, and we are behind you. Thank you so much for the chance to speak with you.